Florida's Caleb Banks is an immovable object and monster in the middle of their defensive line with scary athleticism.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Sanchez. He is a director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day shot for being our everydayers, guys. Talking about the interior defensive line in the summer scouting notebook, Caleb Banks, the star DT from Florida, is a guy that has top 15 potential. We're going to go to Penn State, talk about their 6'1", 290-pound just monster in the middle of their defensive line, Zane Durant, and then Clemson's Demonte Capehart, the guy that went back to school to really uplift his draft stock. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Caleb Banks, this is a big dude, 6'6", 300, I think 20 plus pounds, if I remember correctly. And this is a guy that, I'm not gonna lie to you, Keith, he reminded me of a 330 is what he's listed at right now. 6'6", 330. And when I watched him, just off the look of him, he reminded me a lot of Gervon Dexter body type. I remember Gervon was that tall, big, strong, athletic looking interior defensive line. And Banks coming off of the season where he had 4.5 sacks, 4 QB hits, 21 pressures on the season. He had 2 fumbles forced as well. And Keith, I'm not gonna lie, this is an impressive dude, man. First step explosiveness upfield. I like how he's able to disengage from blockers when he really is able to use his hands quickly. He has a nice little strong rip maneuver to get through. He can power through blockers and just walk them back into the face of the quarterback. Has a really high motor. I can't remember which game I was watching, but he had a rush where he had to work through the guard, the tackle, and then the running back to get to the quarterback. And he still shot out to the coverage. It was a coverage pressure, but he still kept working until he was able to disrupt the quarterback. I want to see him just improve as a run defender, Keith, maintaining that pad level, which is not easy at 6'6", 330, and then just developing more pass rush counters. I think if he does those type of things, we're talking about a guy that's going to be a top 15, top 20 pick. We just watched in this past draft, we had Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. I think those were Walter Nolan was 16 or wherever the Cardinals were picking. So we got 3 in the top 20. Right. I look at this situation with Caleb. We already talked about Peter Woods. This is probably the guy that is going to be his biggest rival right now. Is going to be Caleb Banks because his ability to get to the quarterback, right? 21 pressures on the season, get back there to the quarterback, but also having the things you can't teach: 6'6", 330, movement skills, athleticism. I think I was watching might have been the LSU game. I think that might have been his best game, honestly. And there was a rep where the guard tries to surge into him, get his hands fitted, and he hit him with this quick club swim maneuver. And I'm like, this dude got a lot of upside, Keith.
Yeah, my statement, thinking about Caleb Banks, and you talked about the size, right, being 6'6", listed at 330 pounds. DP, he is what everybody thought Deion Walker was.
I thought about that too when I was watching.
And the crazy part is, I think they're from the same area, like the area around Detroit, Michigan. I'm pretty sure they're either from Detroit or both around the area of Detroit, Michigan. And the reason why I say that is that obviously, DP, we had conversations last year at this very moment, right, where Deion Walker was a slotted first round guy, top 10 pick, XYZ, right? And I came on here, you came on here and was like, we have concerns, right? And we have concerns to where this can go really good or really bad. And unfortunately for Deion, right? And this is not bashing him at all, right? Some of those concerns were highlighted last year, hence the reason why he fell. With Caleb Banks, I think that he is a high floor prospect because he does the nitty gritty stuff. So I can't foresee a fall right from wherever
Yeah.
you have him slotted. If you have him slotted as a second round pick, I don't think this guy goes to the 5th round. If you have him as a 3rd round, I don't think he falls to the 7th round. Wherever you have him slotted, I think it's pretty consistent across the board because what he does is not based off of hitting his ceiling, right? Like it's like you can't. And we talk about this like it's basketball, right? Or it's football and just being a wide receiver that's just fast, meaning that
Yeah.
time you can contribute if it's a 50-yard bomb, right? Like that stuff is not, it doesn't happen all the time, right? Like to be a good wide receiver, you have to be well-rounded. You have to be able to run a quick slant. You have to be running
Yeah.
a curl, a deep end, things like that. It's the same for defensive linemen. We can't just give you all the credit for the sacks if you don't play strong in the run game, right? If you don't command, if you don't, take on double teams, if you're not position lineman versatile, right? Like if you don't collapse the pocket, things like that. And Caleb Banks does those things. I agree with you. I was a lot more excited than what I even thought that I would be. And I could see him at this very moment and still as we work through these prospects being a top 30 guy for me, right? And trending upwards throughout this season.
Yeah, I mean, when you're 6'6", 330, and you have that first step that he has to be able to just literally threaten that outside shoulder, that outside gap, like he gets upfield quickly. And I think, and that's the thing, I think like with him as a pass rusher, his pad level is fine to me. When he plays a run, you see him kind of jack in the box a little bit. And if he could keep that pad level just somewhere in the middle as a run defender, like that's going to really set his floor. Because I think the lateral stuff he's fine with, like the zone schemes, stuff like that. I think
movement skills are good. His movement skills are
like
he's
fine.
A good athlete. Yeah,
he's a legit athlete at 6'6", 330. I think that first rep when I saw like the quickness and the explosiveness off the ball, I was like, he's like halfway past the line of scrimmage, and the guard's just getting out of his stance. And I'm like, that's a terrifying thing when you have a guy that big with arm length and strength, and then he has a get off, like to be able to get off the ball that quickly and threaten the shoulders and the chest plate. Because now you already know as a guard, you're playing. Typically, guards are playing guards because they don't have tackle length or athleticism. They don't have the arm length, right? So if you're already in the tail of the tape, down on the scorecard, like I have the worst wingspan and reach out of me and Caleb Banks. If he gets his hands fitted especially in the run game, like the power run game, this is a guy that you want him to be able to fit his hands, lock out, stack, lock out, shed, peek and shed, and find the football. He has the physical ability to do that. So I was very impressed with watching him. I'm like, man, now it's like I think coaching the zone stuff is more so you got the lateral movement. Now let's work on the strike placement, because if you can start striking where you're supposed to, hitting that instead that upfield shoulder, attacking that for that guard or that lineman that's trying to be able to beat you to the spot and then reach block you, strike them, keep them at bay, and then surge into the backfield on those zone runs. You're going to make that running back bounce it out more lateral, and now your linebackers can flow. And when you're going backwards or lateral, you're not going forward, so you're not getting any momentum, progression, or yards. I think this is a guy. Again, we talk about Peter Woods. He's the most. To me, I think to both of us, he was the most dominant and most disruptive dude so far that we've watched at interior defensive line. That next guy that's going to be there to challenge him is going to be Caleb Banks. And there's going to be a conversation between some of those scouts and decision makers in the league that are like, oh, we want the guy that has the build, the prototypical build. He's 6'6", he's 330. They're like, okay, we can teach him everything else, right? And like that's where that discussion is going to be. No matter if you do feel like Peter Woods is the better prospect, there will be a discussion about him and Caleb Banks. If Caleb Banks takes that next step overall, there's going to be a discussion between those two as who is ideal one for the 2026 NFL draft.
Yep, 100%. DP, let's do this, man. We are keeping the big boys rolling. Yes, we have another one. Interior defensive lineman. We're going with Penn State's Zane Durant coming up next.
Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day, and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress, guys. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. So take the guesswork out of buying as well. Take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. 6'1", 292 pounds. Zane Durant from Penn State is a name you guys need to know. We're talking about the interior defensive line class for the 2026 NFL draft. Coming off a season, 7 QB hits, 17 pressures, 3 sacks last year for Penn State. He didn't have any forced fumbles last year, but this is a guy that you saw him take a step forward. It's his second full, I think it's his actual first full year as a starter, where he was more of a rotational player the first, I'd say, 2 years of his career for Penn State's defense. And now with Abdul Carter gone, Keith, and you got Dennis Sutton, you have Zane Durant. They have some other guys. I just wrote an article for Bleacher Report that should be dropping today or tomorrow about those overlooked prospects for the 2026 NFL draft who can merge into first-round picks. I think Zane Durant is one of those guys. This is a guy that plays all 3 downs, and he's strong, he's physical, he has a compact build. You know what I mean? His ability to play the run laterally or handle down and man blocks, but then also his ability to get into the backfield. And I believe it was was it Ole Miss? I can't remember who they played, but there was a play it wasn't Ole Miss. It was a different team I watched them play. It might have been Boise. And I remember him lined up at the 0. And now he's 6'1", 290, guys. So measurement-wise, he's not going to check every box for every NFL team. There's going to be some teams going to wipe him off their board because he's not 6'3", 305 with 35-inch arms. That's just the nature of the situation. But his quickness, the same thing with Caleb Banks, and we talk about with Peter Woods, Zane Durant has a quick first step. He gets a feel in a hurry. He knows how to use his hands to beat up interior offensive linemen and soften those edges and creases to get into the backfield. He plays the run well. I think size-wise, Keith, he's going to be somebody that, remember, and that's why I believe he could be a first-rounder, we watched Calijah Kancey at 6'1", 278 pounds.
I'm so glad you went there.
278 to 292.
So, yeah, this is going to be my exact talking point. And I have something to present versus a point, right? Mm-hmm. And looking at the undersized guys, right? And we know what this is a derivative of. It's a derivative of Aaron Donald's success, right? And some people thinking it could get that. A hot topic was Calijah Kancey and what he's able to provide. He wound up going in the first round to the Tampa Bay Bucks, right? You look at Zane Durant, I think you were getting it into that he's 20 pounds heavier, right? Mm-hmm. I want to ask, what do you think the draft community is currently? Do we look at Calijah Kancey as a success and there are more undersized defensive tackles that can come from that? Or is the draft community kind of we're done trying to chase Aaron Donald, right? Or chase the next Aaron Donald, and we're going with the big guys? Because I think with Zane, it can go either way. Because there's the argument, because he's a good football player, don't get me wrong, right? But even with Calijah, right? It was the upside bet of the sacks, and the run game was kind of solid, but you knew at the end of the day he was 275 pounds, right? Yeah. But I think there are also other undersized defensive linemen. You look at the Dallas Cowboys, right? And how many times they've drafted undersized, quick, penetrating defensive linemen was this doesn't help you, right? This is not what you need. So I wanted to ask you, and that's why I was glad you brought up Calijah, because it was actually exactly where I was going. What do you think the current state of the draft community is? as far as buying into, because there are
Yeah.
trends. You know how it go, like it's trends and everybody wants the next this, and then they fall off and stop doing that, right? And then everybody wants the next. So where are we with the interior defensive alignment currently? Because I think that's going to affect draft grades for him and how he's viewed because of the size.
I think right now, I think Calijah Kancey he had a solid rookie year. Like 4 sacks, 33 pressures. He only played 12 games last year. He had 7.5 sacks, 37 pressures. So his pressures went up, his sack numbers went up, things of that nature. But again, he was I think even right now he's listed at 275. You know what I mean? So it's like that the run game stuff was still going to be, granted, they paired him with who? You know what I mean? They paired with a big physical
with Vita Vea,
right?
That
So
was
you had
another
to do
question.
that.
All right, keep going, and I have a question based off of that.
But you had to do that for Calijah. You couldn't put Calijah as your main piece because he just didn't play the run as well. Like he played with leverage, but he was 275. When I look at Zane, I think with this the thing with Zane Durant, like I think I put it in my heart, like he's a bigger, stronger, more densely built guy who plays with that same leverage. I think where we're trending now, Keith, you talk about trends, the run game is becoming prevalent again. So when you are if you're 275, I don't think if this trend continues, we ask ourselves in 5 years, and we see the run game really balloon back up, teams willing to be in base, teams willing to run the ball and punch you in the mouth because you're smaller on defense now. I don't think we'll be drafting the Calijah Kanceys in round 1 in 5 to 10 years if that trend continues. Because I think history is repeating itself. We're getting back to being physical again in the trenches, and you need somebody that is built to be able to handle it. And not saying Calijah Kancey's not a terrible run defender, but when you're 275,
there's only so much you can do, right?
You don't have enough sand in the pants, baby. Like you don't have enough to be able to anchor in it. And truthfully, it's like, okay, maybe we don't double team Vita Vea. It sounds crazy enough to not do that, but maybe we double team you and just wash you out the way. And run right in your direction. And if that's the case, I feel like we can have some success there rather than trying to double team Vita and it's like running his direction.
So even what the Bucks did, right, and they tried their very best to put Calijah Kancey in position, and 7 sacks last year in 12 games from a interior defensive lineman. That's great, right? Like that's really good numbers, right? Like that's really good. What I was going to ask you also too, I wonder if the path to success for these type of situations, and maybe we'll see this because NFL offenses are becoming more balanced, right, as far as implementing the run game and the pass game, is that you almost have a defensive line by committee. And I'm not talking about everybody talks about, oh, you rotate your guys. No, I'm talking about like your interior defensive line, meaning that like there are not too many teams that's constructed where I have a sack getter as an interior defensive lineman, right? Like you have a sack getter as like your edge rushers and things like that, or you may kick a guy inside. But what I'm saying is like for Zane Durant, do you draft him and be like, hey, we just need to pair him up with a big run stopper, and then we have a guy that could just go get us pressures and things like that, right? Like I wonder 100%. If you can start recreating this equation for your interior defensive lineman room just because of what's happening with the run game. But you also don't want to totally sacrifice your ability to get pressure because the quarterbacks we have, you might want to try to affect them too, right? So it's tough to play defense, and I wonder if you're going to have to just start thinking about team construction in a different way.
I mean, yeah, you have to, right? Like you got to make sure that, because I think if you think about the Philadelphia Eagles, if they didn't have a Jalen Carter already, you know what I mean? Zane Durant would have been a perfect fit alongside a Jordan Davis, a guy that can two-plug, handle, dual gap responsibility, force those double teams in the run game. You get in with those. I mean, heck, you look at the Ravens, right? They have big Travis Jones who does a lot of that, and he also gets upfield as a pass rusher because he's a good athlete at 330, 40 pounds or whatever he weighs at this point. But you have Medabuike, you have just a litany of guys. Like he would fit really well in that rotation with what they have as well. So I do think that should be the idea. I think for me with Zane Durant, when I look at him, I say, okay, he's going to be a 3-tech or a 4-eye, right? You want him with a bigger nose tackle or bigger defensive line that's going to play that 0-1 or 2-eye role opposite of him that can cause chaos, pull the attention because you want him working one-on-one. Now, granted, again, he plays with great leverage. He's very strong. And now, I mean, people praise Calijah for his strength at 275, but I went back and watched Calijah at some of his pit stuff to go back and watch Zane, and I was like, the strengths are two different things. Like
you could tell they're two different body types.
Yeah, like Zane is much stronger, you know what I mean, at the point of attack, at holding up at the point of attack, anchoring, thicker lower halves, thicker body up bit like up top. Like this is a dude who, and he's he was like he led it in like weightlifting in high school. Like this guy who loves the weight room. You know what I mean? He was on shot put, everything in track and whatnot. So like he's naturally strong. Like this has been him since he was a high schooler, right? Where you looked at and you felt that I remember watching Calijah and I was like, oh, that was an admirable run rep. You know what I mean? Like that was admirable. I never walked away. I was like, man, that was great. Like look at him just like, you know, just bull rush the guy, lift him off like he doesn't have that in this game more so. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how things pan out. I think Zane, he's going to be an outlier for a lot of teams. Again, 6'1", 290. It's like, okay, now he does play all up and down that line of scrimmage, so he gives you that alignment versatility where if you're a four-man front, let's say you want to go big because you're playing a Baltimore Ravens defense that runs the ball. You got two big defensive tackles to plug up the run gaps for Derrick Henry. Zane could play a strong defensive end role because he's really good and he can get inside the gaps, work outside the shoulders. He has good hand usage, things like that. Sutton is off the ball. Good player. It's going to be team, scheme, and plan fit for where he goes. But I'm looking very much forward to him and this Penn State team this year. Because for him now with Abdul Carter gone, these guys now have they have the spotlight
on them
to each other, right? Him, Dennis Sutton, like it's not somebody's not pulling all of that, and they're not pulling attention away from a blocking standpoint. No, you guys got to go out there and get it when teams are gearing up like to stop you and stop both of you. So looking forward to seeing how they develop this year.
Yep. Well, DP, let's do this, man. Let's wrap this episode up with your neck of the woods, right, man? We are going to Clemson University. Demonte Capehart, interior defensive lineman. If you've been listening to us, you know we talked about him last year. The big boy is coming back. He's coming back for a first-round grade, right? That's what he's trying to get. Let's talk about Demonte Capehart and a couple guys that he reminds me of in a couple past few drafts. Demonte Capehart, interior defensive lineman, Clemson, coming up next.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everyday is Demonte Capehart. I'm pretty sure it was around this time last year, Keith, when we came on the pod and talked him up. 6'5", 315 pounds. This guy is a run-stuffing defensive tackle. Pass rush is a little inconsistent or non-existent for him. Two QB hits,
to say
0 sacks. To say it modestly, 2 QB hits, 0 sacks, 3 total pressures on the year. He had a better year just overall. His tape and stuff was better in 2023 than it was in 2024, just as a pass rusher, things of that nature. But you know what you're getting with. I think this is one of those guys where you're like, you know what, the floor is the floor. What did MJ say? The ceiling is the roof. Like the floor is the floor. Like you know what you're getting with Demonte Capehart. You know he's going to play first and second downs. That he has that raw, brute strength at the point of attack. This is a guy that I've seen. Man, T'Vondre Sweat. Remember at the Senior Bowl last year? I think it might have been against our guy Bo Collins, if I remember correctly. Like when he just kind of like folded the center up on a like. That I've seen there's reps of Demonte Capehart just getting his hands into a interior offensive lineman, and then just throwing them away like they're a piece of trash. And I'm like, this is still a 300-pound human being. So to be able to displace a guy with his strength and his power, it's just natural brute strength and power. He can quickly displace guys, a good strong run defender. But I think he's going to be an early down dependent player. The lack of pass rush impact, inconsistent pad level, and stuff like that, and quickly deconstructing blocks as a pass rusher. He'll slow cook you into the quarterback if he like bull rushes. And I think that's where, for me, I think a defensive line coach, and now having a new defensive coordinator, things like that coming to Clemson, you will see him get 2-3 yards upfield and sometimes just stall out because he's still bull rushing. Like, no, just push pull technique. Like, displace that guy.
Work
then
on
that
getting
will
him out the way.
exactly.
It
Like,
seems
work on
like,
getting to the quarterback.
yeah, the trigger is late, right? To like
Mhm.
convert from stopping a run to rushing a passer. DP, I thought of when I watched him, I thought of one school. I thought of, and it's kind of their not rival, but they've had some high profile matchups. I thought of Alabama. And all of their interior defensive linemen, the Byron Youngs, the Justin Eboigbe's, even going back to, I'm trying to think of a couple other guys that have been drafted, Christian Barmore, right? And all of these guys were top 100 picks. Some guys, any range from first round to third round. And I could see Demonte Capehart being in there. Yeah. And the reason I thought of these guys is because obviously, the past few years with Draft Network, I've had Alabama, right? And so I've watched a lot of these guys, and none of them, I don't say none of them, but most of them were not guys that you were like, oh, these are sack getters, right? They were just really good four eyes and an odd front that were going to take on double teams, that were going to lock out, that were going to hold a line of scrimmage, and you knew that they were going to do their job, right? And it's the Nick Saban, it's the Bill Belichick, it's the just do your job. Yeah. I feel comfortable with drafting Demonte Capehart because he can do the job, right? Like if I'm the Dallas Cowboys and we just talked about them with the last segment, prime opportunity to get a guy, right? Like just get in there, stop the run. That's the hard part, right? Like that's the nitty gritty. That's you got to tape your ankles and make sure you have your mouthpiece in and your chin strap buckled. It's taking on double teams. And I trust Demonte Capehart to do that. Now, the upside players, like you said, can he get the sacks? We'll see, but we'll also see if he'll be in position to get the sacks, right? Like he kind of has to be in position. And I think we've seen a guy recently, even from Clemson, Ruka Rua. This is another guy that I really liked. Drafted to Atlanta, and he went fairly early. I think he was a second
round. Yep, second round.
Pick. Yeah, I see Demonte Capehart in this situation as a top 50, top 75 guy with the opportunity to elevate himself.
Yeah, 100%. I think with that, his strong, dense build, like this is a guy that with his run defense. Like you think about even with the Giants, right? I know they drafted Darius Alexander this year, but they needed another defensive tackle to go with Dexter Lawrence. And you know what I mean? And if it's a situation where Kayvon Thibodeau doesn't work out and you're playing Abdul all over the defense, you draft a big Demonte Capehart, you're not running between the tackles with Demonte and Dexter Lawrence in the middle of the defense. You better off running zone and get to the perimeter. You're not getting in between the teeth of that defense. And I think that's going to be just why his floor is going to be where it is. And I think for him, like I said, if he triggers a little sooner with his bull rush and going from bull rush to literally just a rip maneuver, whatever, like get disengage and deconstruct that block quicker, he'll have more impact, even if it's not sacks, right? When you're 6'5" through almost 330, I don't expect you to come out here and have 10, 12 sacks, right? You're 315, 320. What I need you to do is, can you still collapse the pocket and create some pressures? And if he can do that more consistently, that's going to really help himself out. Because then you think about those creative defensive coordinators in the league that will go one defensive tackle and then multiple like linebackers, rushers, like those type of guys. And now you have your center is like, okay, there's a chance I get one-on-one with him and then everybody else got to fend for themselves. They're creating a mismatch somewhere. And the question got to be, am I the mismatch? Like, are they trying to bowl me over with the big defensive tackle and different things like that? You could spread the offensive line out and force guys to really be on the island. Guards, tackle, center. You can do those type of things. So it's going to be an interesting heck, he's surrounded by so much talent at Clemson. And that's what, like you said, being in position. If he has if he gets back to at least like 2023 numbers, he had the sack. I think he had like 10 pressures in that season, a QB hit, like really start making his presence felt a little bit more in the backfield on passing downs. Yeah, he's going to probably secure himself at worst as a day 2 pick.
Yep, I agree with DP. That wraps up another episode, man, an interior defensive line scouting episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP _NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. On tomorrow's show, we're getting into some more edge rushers, guys. R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma, a big-time player for those Sooners defense with Brent Venables. We're going to talk about him and a couple other edge rushers that you need to know about heading into the 2025 college football season on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.